What's the most creepily intelligent thing your pet has ever done? My cat. Tuffy stole a piece of bread off of the stove and put it in the floor next to the cabinet. She then stared at it intensely and motionlessly for an hour. We thought that was creepy. Then a mouse came out from behind the cabinet to get the bread and she pounced it. She was using the bread as method-king bait. This is the same cat who routinely burns her tongue licking light bulbs, hisses at them, and keeps licking. My dog has epilepsy, so he has to take a pill every morning. I broke it in half and put it in his food and let go at it. Checked a few minutes later and I see the bowl is completely empty except for one of the halves left in the center. I walked into the living room where he was, looked at him and said forget something, as a joke. He looked at me, got up, went back to his bowl and ate the pill in front of me. That ducker knows what's up. My brother was sitting at the table eating cake when he hears our dog barking at the front door. He gets up to check it out, usually means someone is about to ring the doorbell, and then our dog sprints back to the unsupervised cake and eats it all in one bite. I have a chocolate lab and a black cat. My dog loves tennis balls. My cat doesn't want my dog to be happy, so he would sit on her tennis balls like a chicken hatching an egg. One morning I was getting ready for work and my dog is barking at my cat because he's sitting on her tennis ball. I thought, alright asshole, that's it. And I went to the closet, got 3 cans of tennis balls, opened them and tossed them around the apartment. My cat seemed unmoved as my dog yelped in glee at her newly found fortune. I left for work. When I got back home that evening I hear my dog barking in the dining room. When I get there I see all 10 tennis balls in the corner, guarded by my cat and my dog barking at him. He looked me in the eyes as if to say, duck you. I win again. I had a really bad day and was in my room crying. My cockatiel Stormageddon started screaming from his cage so I got him out. He jumped onto my shoulder and put his head on my cheek and started saying it's okay, it's okay, it's okay over and over again. I say that to him when he freaks out in his cage at night time. A car honks a horn outside and he starts screaming and flapping his wings. I didn't realize he could tell I was sad and say it back to me to comfort me like I comfort him, let alone say it at all. My cousin had a koi fish pond and 2 dogs. One night the dogs started barking during the middle of the night really loud and urgently. And they almost never bark at anything. My cousin and her parents knew something was weird and went out to check. One of the fish somehow managed to jump out the pond and was flopping around next to the water on the concrete. And one dog was trying to help it back in the water with his nose while the other was barking for my cousin or her parents to help. Once they watched them place the fish in the water, they went back in the kennels to sleep. They would watch the pond a lot from then on. I watched my Australian Shepherd problem solve how to get her tennis balls that get stuck under the furniture out by taking another tennis ball and rolling it to knock the stuck one out. She seemed very pleased with herself. I had a cat once who knew that to get water from the faucet in the sink she would tap on the handle, not the faucet, and look at me. If she had opposable thumb she would have turned it herself. Other cats would just look at the faucet and wait. She also would leap on her brother if he started to scratch the edge of the sofa to get him to stop. Knowing it was not allowed, she also not only recognized herself in the mirror, but would use it to groom the hair on her back that she couldn't see otherwise. Woke me up and brought me outside to under the deck, where he very obviously showed me the cat that got out and was hiding under there. He looked at the cat, then back at me, then at the cat, then back at me. When I was younger I lost a watch that I really loved. Around that time my cat developed a habit of using his front paws to reach under the fridge and just scramble around under there like crazy. He was seriously obsessed and did that for almost a year. Until one night he pulled out a tray that had been under the fridge. And on it was my watch. After that he never touched the fridge again. He was a good boy. Not mine. By my mother had 2 cats in Hawaii before I was born. She would tell stories about how one, Ipo, was very intelligent, and the other, Popoki, was as dumb as a bag of rocks. Made a great pair. She would talk about how they'd be playing out back and she would call them in for dinner. Ipo would immediately show up, but Popoki would be lost in her very small backyard. She would just look at Ipo and say, "Ipo, go get Popoki." and Epo would run out and guide Popoki into the house and to his food dish so that he could have dinner. Same sort of thing if she had no idea where Popoki was. She would just tell Epo to find him, and Epo would go search the house and bring Popoki to her. Edit, misspelled Ipo and Popoki as Epo and Popoki because I cannot Hawaiian. There was a time when, coming back from a trip, the balls of my feet were swollen and it hurt going up and down the stairs. My cat, that little it, would actually imitate me by limping up and down the stairs, taking the steps one at a time, while meowing pitifully. I swear if he could talk, he would have said something like, "See, this is how stupid you look." Edit, whoa. My first gold. Thank you, kind stranger. Rock in a rocking chair. I thought my living room was haunted for weeks. While he was sitting on the carpet, looked at me and winked, "You little asshole." My dad has always had problems with throwing his back out and it usually makes him unable to move for several weeks. Anyways, one time when he threw out his back, my dog grabbed a blanket in her mouth and slowly spread it over my dad while he was sleeping. We were all amazed and gave her a treat. If I called my girlfriend at around 9 PM on a Friday, my dog would always get excited and head to the truck. I was stationed in Shanghai for about a year, but lived 4 years in Thailand with my GF and my dog. Whenever I had a long weekend I'd fly back to Thailand. My dog quickly picked up on the idea that whenever my GF switched from speaking Thai to English, she was talking to me. I would call her when I arrived at the airport on a Friday evening, as it was only about 15 minutes from our home, and she'd come pick me up. My dog was able to put this whole scenario together and went ape it whenever I called on a Friday evening, and he would immediately head for the truck to go pick me up. When I would call her at other hours of the day, he would look at her like he knew who she was talking to, but he knew that it didn't mean that I was coming home. Had a budgie. Basil. He was cool. He would always sit on my shoulder and sleep while watching TV. If ever my flatmate and I were chilling on the couch, he would fly from me to her, land on her shoulder, do a rit and then fly back to me. Basil never liked Claire much. My dog once started barking at the door, like someone was about to knock or come in. While I was eating, I got up to see who was there and it was no one. I went back and some of my food was on the ground, being shared by the dog and 2 cats. I think one of the cats knocked some off, so they worked together as a team to steal my food. My cat can open doors. She understands that turning the knob unlatches the door. It takes her a few tries, but she does it all the time now. Getting into the office, where she isn't allowed. I have also found her cat toy stash. I have no idea why, but she hides her favorite toys in a few caches around my apartment. My cat was sitting on the front porch sunning herself one day, and my dad walks outside to do some yard work. He tells her to make herself useful and go catch a mouse or something, and walks off. My mom confirmed she heard my dad say this through the open window near the porch. A short while later, my dad is passing through the front yard, and sees the cat laying in the grass with her front legs outstretched in front of her. Upon closer inspection, she's got something clamped between her front paws. It was a mouse. Not my dog. I have one but he hasn't had any remarkable moment for now. But my neighbor's dog. He is old and frail and neglects him. Even though he gave him a place to stay, he used to be a stray. He knows he won't get much food from his owner, if any. So he usually spends his days roaming the neighborhood and going to house. He knows specifically which neighbor will give him food and knows the precise time we all finished lunch. He used to frequent my grandma's house, waiting patiently at the front door for leftovers. If she didn't have any, he would leave with dignity, although he took a rit in my grandma's garden as a revenge once. The most intelligent part though is his ability to sneak outside his fenced yard, and nobody knows how. Even with the gates closed, he would suddenly appear outside or inside. Once, I watched him closely as he was walking home, to make sure I could see him. However, suddenly he stopped and looked at me, never breaking eye contact. I had to sneeze, and by the time I could look back at him, 3 ducking seconds, he was back in his yard. The ducker was clever to take the opportunity. He also is aware of the concept of traffic lights and pedestrian crosses over roads. as I witnessed him multiple times waiting patiently for his light to turn green so he could pass the street, and knows to look for cars in a time he has to cross on an unmarked area. I actually have a story for this. I taught my dog to play hide and seek. I made him sit in the kitchen while I hid her or hide somewhere in the house. He would then search until he found it and would then bring it back to me. I would then tell him to hide it and he would. One day I was searching for the damn rawhide for like 10 minutes and could not find it. Searched everywhere. Eventually I had to give up, totally confused. Next morning I open a dresser drawer to get a pair of shorts and there it is. He saw a slightly cracked drawer, dropped it in, closed it, and outsmarted a human. I was very proud. Edit. Typos. Typos everywhere. So I have this cat, Chairman Meow. He had to go live at my parents' because I was in the Navy and my ship was deploying. And they started letting him go out and come in as he pleased, which I was totally in favor of. He was getting chubby as an apartment cat. Then my mom started to notice something weird. Now, for context, she's in her 60s and had just retired. My dad was still working for another year or two, with me and my brother grown and moved out. There was a lot of time home alone for her, not that she didn't go out or have hobbies, but that's beside the point. What she noticed is that sometimes she'd let the cat out, then 10 minutes later he'd walk by inside. She started worrying that she was having blackouts, or suffering from something with early onset in the name or something. It was happening often enough that she started keeping paper logs. Then one day she went down to the finished basement for the first time in a while, and stepped into a horror film. Like I said, my brother and I had moved out, and the basement was carpeted etc, but was mostly being used to store stuff, including, apparently, blood. Lots of blood. Staining the carpet. Dripping down a wall. In the ceiling. She even found a pile of entrails. Turns out what was happening was, the cat had gotten up in the suspended ceiling, and found a loose brick in the foundation. He'd worked it loose. Being a cat, he still demanded humans serve him by opening the door. But he could go in and out as he pleased also. And he was bringing his trophies back into the basement. The entrails I mentioned, on closer inspection, it was a rabbit. Well, half a rabbit. And that's how my cat made my mom think she was losing her mind. My cat would not get up from my godfather's chest. 2-3 months before he died from breast cancer. My cat faked a limp after falling off the window. It was a big fall. 5 stories, and she did sprain her paw. But my mom witnessed her sprinting normally and then switching to limp when I walked in. I had friends round and one of them brought fudge. Cats were interested but got chased off it a couple of times. They wait for attention to shift to something else. Little cat goes into the middle of the group of friends. Acts all cute, causes a distraction, while bigger cat gets on the table. Knocks down the fudge. Little cat quietly moves on and then joins her brother eating fudge. Proper teamwork. That not only used their individual strengths but exploited our weaknesses. Impressed. Not sure if this counts here, but we have a painting in our living room that was painted by a good friend of my mom. My cat never actually acknowledged the painting up until the day that the person who painted the piece passed away. On the day we heard of the passing, my cat would constantly stare at the painting, which it never did. I find that creepy. Fake to have a paw injury so I'd carry him around the house. My dog was kinda just trotting alongside me when he got an itch on his butt. Without stopping his run, he reached his head all the way back and started nibbling the itchy spot. So for about 10 paces, his back feet were running forward and his front feet were running backward. My cat is diabetic. About a month ago he had to start insulin twice daily. I have an auto feeder which goes off every 12 hours and gives a proportioned meal. Since I work early in the morning, the first meal goes off at 5 AM. Half an hour after he eats he gets his insulin. He is a good boy and sits very still while I give him his needle. Every time I tell him good boy, and give him a quick once over with his favorite brush. On my day off I forgot to set my alarm for his insulin. At 5:30 he jumped right up on my chest and patted my face every so gently until I got out of bed. He immediately ran right to the fridge and sat down. where the insulin is, waiting for his first brushing. Good boy knows he is a good boy. I have a wireless shock collar fence for my dogs. My oldest sits just close enough to the fence to hear the audible alarm but not get shocked. She does this to run the battery down so she can go exploring when we let her out at night. She's done this several times and doesn't come back until morning. We use 3-4 times more batteries in her collar than my other two mutts. While at the park playing fetch, my dog spotted a squirrel and took off after it into the woods. I couldn't find her for the life of me, so my mom and I started driving around to look for her and checking our home voicemail every 10 minutes in case someone found her and called the number on her tags. 2 hours go by and we decide to go home to eat before continuing our search. Turns out she walked the 3 miles back home from the park and snuck under the backyard deck and up the deck stairs and was waiting at the back door for us upon our return. That's Martage. Still love her though. Not my pet but my best friend's. His dog figured out how to open the patio door at his house by hitting the handle and leaning into it, and so rather than wait to be let out to relieve herself at night, she would just open the door and go outside and handle business. However, the door would usually shut when she would go out and the exterior handle was a knob which she couldn't manipulate without thumbs. So she would scratch and bark a bit until my friend came and let her back in. Then she figured out an even better way to get in. When she had finished her business, she would go around front and, I kid you not, bonk the doorbell with her nose. Now I never knew she could do this, so I was watching a movie at my friend's place and he went to go use the can, and while he was occupied the doorbell rang and I got up to answer it and I didn't see anyone out the screen door, so I shrugged and went back to my seat. Then it rang again and this time I opened the screen door and there was the dog sitting patiently waiting to come in. I was floored. I was like, dude, your duck-kind dog knows how to ring a doorbell? And he was like, yay. Did I not tell you that? No you didn't. I'm also not sure why I am shouting. She died a few months back and my friend and his family were devastated. R.I.P. Molly.